All right, what's going on, guys? So this video is going to be a little bit different than what I usually post. I'm going to be going over how you can improve your facial features and become more attractive. In case you live under a rock or don't know, we live in a world where people judge each other based on how they look as opposed to what their personality is and their actions. I know everyone says don't judge a book by its cover, but that's just not the world we live in. I'm sorry, you got to play the game. Being more attractive, being more fit is a sign of self-respect, so there's no reason why you shouldn't make it at least somewhat of a priority in your life. Because when someone sees you as someone who is good looking, has a good physique, they're going to view you as someone who is ambitious, confident, and has a lot going for them, even if that's not the case. Now, unfortunately, the opposite does apply. If you're fat, if you smell bad, if you're ugly, people are going to assume that you're lazy, that you don't have a lot going for you, and you just don't have your life together. Again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, good or bad, it's just literally the world we live in. And since we're all forced into this world, you might as well play the game and try to improve your looks as much as you can. So this is the picture of me back in February of this year. I had zero jawline, my skin wasn't clear, I looked inflamed, and honestly, I felt like shit, and I looked like shit. And this is the picture of me now, or just maybe even a couple weeks ago. A lot has changed, as you can see, and it goes beyond just the boring, oh, lose weight and then you'll look better, which is true for sure, but there is more that goes into it. So these are all the things I've experienced, I've learned over the last few months of really just trying to improve my looks, not only just with my physique, but also just facial features in general. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 things as well as a bonus at the end on how you can actually improve your looks and things that you can implement right now to start seeing changes. Not only just in your face, but just you as a person in general. So anyways, let's get right into it. So for a majority of my life, I honestly just did not care what I looked like. I had zero style. I literally had a bowl cut, as you can see in this picture here. And it didn't bother me at all because, you know, I could just live life and not really care how I look. Just wasn't something I put any priority to. However, it was not until about high school where people started making fun of me based on the way I looked, and I started to think to myself, what is wrong with me? Why are people making fun of me as opposed to anyone else? Like, I literally just thought I was a normal guy. However, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw someone who was much uglier or just significantly less attractive than anyone else. Even though I wasn't super fat, I was super skinny, but people could tell that I just didn't really have a lot of self-respect for myself. So really ever since high school, when I got bullied all the time, that's really when I started to take a lot of consideration into how I look and started making it much more of a priority. I would observe how all the better looking guys would get all the hot girls, which, you know, go figure. They seem to be doing well. They seem to be getting good grades. Even the teachers seem to be giving them better grades just because they look better, even if their performance on a presentation or an essay or something wasn't as good as someone else's that was ugly. And after doing research, I realized that what these better looking guys had is that they had this halo effect. Now, if you don't know what the halo effect is, it's when people assume that you have a lot going for you, that you're smart, that you're funny, just because you're attractive. So it's a cognitive bias that influences the way that people judge you simply based on your looks. Again, they're going to view you as someone who is competent, who is trustworthy, and just view you in a much more positive light when you're significantly more attractive versus not. And basically to me, it seemed like anyone who was good looking, who had this halo effect, just had life on easy mode. Like they barely even had to try on certain things and still do well. And like they had no problem getting what they wanted. And once I came into that realization even more, I started noticing how the heroes in action movies or just movies in general were always better looking. I mean, look at Superman, for example. And then the villains are always ugly. They're always not, I mean, you're usually fat. They just don't really look very attractive. And I don't want to necessarily say I studied people who were good looking, but I would honestly constantly find myself comparing myself to them. I would always question myself on how I actually compare to them, like what makes them specifically more attractive than me. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say it's not the healthy way of thinking, but it was just what I did, and I'm just being honest about my experience. And really, it just goes to show how insecure I actually was when I was growing up, when I started realizing that I need to improve my looks. So here's what I got to say after going through this transformation. It's honestly all up here. It's all in your mind and how you actually perceive yourself. Because there are so many self-limiting beliefs that you had as well as I had back in the day that were making me view myself as someone who is unattractive. Like, you guys have to keep in mind that changing physically is extremely easy if you put your mind to it, but changing mentally is a whole nother beast. Like when I was on my come up to say, people would compliment me on the changes they were seeing in my physique, in my face. They would say I was good looking. They were saying they could see my progress in the gym, but honestly, just because I didn't say it myself, I didn't believe them. I thought they were just trying to be nice, or that they saw that I didn't believe in myself, so they were trying to make me feel good. And it was all because I didn't have the right mindset in place. So like I said, I grew up thinking I was ugly, thinking that I was unattractive. And it wasn't until the bullying started that I actually became insecure about it. Because even though I changed physically, I had not changed mentally yet. So the point I'm trying to make here is that whenever people compliment you, even if you have improved your looks, is that it's never going to stick unless you've actually had that mindset shift as well. So first things first, see yourself as someone who is actually attractive and make that identity shift. And when I go over everything else in this video, just know that your internal thoughts and perception about yourself is going to translate to how you actually look physically. But just keep it in the back of your mind as you're trying to improve your looks, as you're trying to self-improve, that you are someone who is good looking. So change the way you view yourself and commit to being that person and do the actions every single day that that individual would do. Because if you can actually change what's going on up in here, then I promise the physical aspect of everything is so much easier. And look, man, straight up, I am no one special. I did not have the best starting point, but if I can go through some sort of transformation like this, there's no way why you can't either. All right, so So number one, I'm going over this one pretty quickly because any video that you watch on improving your looks is going to talk about this one, and it's pretty basic, but you got to lose fat. Getting leaner. Wow, who would have thought? And you've probably heard the saying a million times that you're not fat, you're just ugly. I mean, it is true to an extent. However, there are people who are in good shape who still aren't that good looking because they just haven't really taken care of what's actually up here. Getting lean, improving your physique, just being more fit in general will have the biggest improvement to your facial features more than pretty much anything else I'm going to be going over in this video. So personally, I'm someone who holds a lot of fat and water in my face and a lot obviously in my midsection as well. As you can see, I started my bulk about a couple days ago and I'm starting to fill out a little bit. But I will say though, there is a lot more to improving your looks than just getting leaner. Food choices are honestly a really big one. You want to cut out processed foods as much as possible. Cut out foods that are inflammatory for you. Like if you have issues with dairy, like how I do, if I have too much of it, I start breaking out, I start bloating, cut out dairy. Eat foods that are much lower in sodium that are going to bloat you. Because I promise, even just switching up your diet, just making much healthier food choices is going to have a pretty big difference on how your actual face looks. Not only just in terms of bloating, but also just skin quality in general. But how do you actually get leaner? Again, you just got to be in a calorie deficit for a long enough period of time. Ideally, lift weights consistently throughout the week, do your cardio, stay hydrated, and if you give it enough time, you will lose fat. Okay, so number two, actually developing your jaw. Now look, this is probably the point of the video where you're going to expect me to go, oh, just start mewing, just start chewing a bunch of gum. That's going to make your jaw look so much better, which yes, those can help. However, just mewing in general is just something like a habit that I've just never been able to do for myself for a long enough period of time to actually see results from it. So personally, I went with improving my facial structure and just jaw in general by different means. So just like applying mechanical tension to muscles in the gym, you can develop your jaw muscles the same way. Now I've tried almost every weird jaw exercise that you can think. I've tried a handful of different devices. I've tried even eating 5 pieces of gum at the same time. And again, those things can work. However, that's just not the best way that I went about things. But what I did find was the best approach was to chew very hard gum. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I actually affiliated with this brand. I'm just showing you guys what I use and what I do. But the gum that I would use is called Jawliner gum. Maybe you've heard of it. So what you want to do is get 2 pieces of this gum and put 1 piece in each side. And you want to chew in the very back of your mouth as much as possible. What I recommend doing is using the gum every 2 days for about 10 minutes. Then after a few days, I would bump it up to maybe 15 minutes every 2 days. Give that some time. Wait for your jaw to not be sore because you will get very sore the first few times you do this. Then slowly work you up. Maybe do 20 minutes every 2 days. Then maybe do 10 minutes every other day. And just slowly find the best routine that works for you and be consistent with it. What I found works best is doing about 15 to 20 minutes every other day. But again, I've worked up to it over time. So it's not an overnight process, but I promise that if you stick with it for a couple months, you will see significant improvements. Number 3, getting clear and youthful looking skin. Now this is honestly something that I'm very proud of because growing up, I had really bad acne, and compared to where I am now versus where I was prior is a significant difference. And I spent years and years trying to improve my skin quality, and I think I'm at a point now where it's the best it's ever gonna look. But first, let's get the boring stuff out of the way as per usual, and then as we progress through this actual tip, you're gonna probably learn some things that you haven't heard before. The first and most obvious is kind of what I mentioned earlier, is that you wanna make sure your diet consists of very little, if not any, processed food. Not only is this probably gonna make you break out, but it's also gonna make your skin look significantly less youthful. Personally, I'm someone who can't have a lot of whey protein powder, otherwise I break out like crazy. So the protein powder I use now is just egg white protein powder, and I've had 0 issues since making the switch. So if you have acne right now, or even just a little bit, the very first line of defense would be to clean up your diet. Now, another big one, but extremely obvious, is to make sure you're actually hydrated. What you guys need to realize is that your skin is about 70% water, and when you're dehydrated, it's gonna make your skin look significantly older. So I drink about 2 gallons of water per day. I know you might say that sounds like a lot, and it is quite a bit, and I am using the bathroom quite a bit. However, the significant improvements I see with my skin make it so worth it. So if you have a hard time getting water in, I recommend that you buy some sort of big water bottle like this and carry it around with you everywhere, and just make a habit to drink out of it throughout the day. It does not matter where I am. I'm always gonna have that water bottle with me and by my side and take sips on it regardless of what my situation is. And it's honestly just a habit at this point. Like I literally just drink water even if I'm not thirsty. 2 other big things that you need to do is cut out alcohol as much as possible and make sure that you're sleeping 7 to 8 hours per night. These are pretty obvious ones, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail here, but just know that alcohol dehydrates you a lot, and just getting a lack of sleep is gonna make your skin look pretty bad. Now let's get into actual skincare. So I know a lot of people use a cleanser, but honestly I don't, because I have very sensitive skin, and I've tried so many different cleansers from super cheap to super expensive, and every single one that I use just makes me break out even after 1 or 2 uses. So is it recommended to get a cleanser and use it? Yeah, for sure. However, if you're like me and someone with extremely sensitive skin and breaks out very easily, then you're gonna have to do some experimenting and see if there's any that work for you. If not, you can get away without it. What I found works best for me in acne prevention is this stuff called Deferrin. Like I'm extremely acne prone, as I mentioned earlier. I've tried countless medications, both prescription and over the counter, and I have found nothing that works better than Deferrin. I apply it after every shower because you want to apply it when your skin is a little bit damp. Then also I do it before bed. What you want to do with it is that when your skin is a little bit damp, you want to apply a very small pea-sized dot on your finger and rub it in your face until it's fully soaked up. However, you do want to avoid avoid under your eyes. And I'm gonna be going over why in a moment. Once it completely dries, then you want to apply a moisturizer. Now again, I've experimented with a bunch of different moisturizers, and the one that I found works best for me is the one called the Perfect Facial Moisturizer from Aesop. Again, I'm not affiliated with this brand in any way, shape, or form. I'm just telling you guys what has worked best for me. And yes, it is a little bit on the expensive side, but it does last a while, and I have noticed a significant improvement from when I was using the cheaper stuff in the past. When you apply the moisturizer, do not want to get under your eyes, and that's going to make sense when I go over the next tip. Now for the little bit more interesting stuff on making your skin look significantly more youthful. Now what I'm going over here might turn some people away because it's a little bit of a gray area, but again, I'm just laying out everything that I've done to improve my facial features and skin in general. Now this one is called the Pretty Boy Peptide, GHK-Cu or GHK Copper. Now this stuff is really good at reducing fine lines, wrinkles, giving your skin that youthful look, and also preventing acne. I honestly don't even take very much of it. I take about 2 milligrams every other day. Now it's a little bit of a gray area, so I'm not going to go into too much specific. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys to do some additional research on it if it's something that you actually want to implement. Now the next thing I'm going to be going over is actually getting darker and tanner skin with very limited tanning bed use. What I use is something called Milano Tan 2. You've probably heard of it. So what I personally do is that I take 250 micrograms before I go tan, and I tan twice a week for 10 minutes. And you want to be careful with this stuff because if you take too much, you will get significantly darker, significantly fast, and honestly just turn yourself into an Oompa Loompa. And I've done it a few times myself. Also, there are some other potential side effects if you take too much, like some flushing, some nausea. So again, I suggest you guys do some more additional research if you want to take this into consideration. So I'm going to put on the screen exactly what my skincare routine looks like because I know I went over a lot and it is pretty comprehensive. So I figured it'd be much easier if I just listed everything out if you want to take a screenshot or just have it in the back of your mind if you want to implement these things. Now the next thing I'm going to be going over is how to get nice white teeth and a great smile. Now that you have your skin in check, complementing your skin with very nice white straight teeth is going to make a world of a difference. Now I'm going to be honest, fortunately I'm someone who's never had messed up teeth in terms of crookedness. I've never had to get braces, I've never had to get a retainer, I've never had to use a Invisalign or anything like that. But if you do have pretty messed up teeth, then of course that's a good conversation for you to have with your dentist because again, I don't have a lot of experience in improving the straightness of your teeth. Like all I really know is that braces work really well. They worked well for my brother, and I know they are expensive, so it is a good conversation to have with your dentist if this is something that you want to consider. So let's get into actually making your teeth whiter. Now I'm someone who absolutely loves black coffee. However, it comes at a cost in terms of making your teeth significantly more yellow over a long period of time. My teeth were honestly never super bad, but there is definitely a lot of room for improvement. Now the obvious thing I'm going to say here, and I'm assuming you guys are already doing this, just make sure you're flossing and brushing your teeth twice per day, once in the morning and once in the evening. It's honestly a no-brainer, and yes, it can help prevent your teeth from getting a little bit more yellow, but I haven't really noticed much improvements in actually making them more white, if that makes sense. And I know there are toothpaste that specifically say that they're going to whiten your teeth, but honestly I just don't have experience with them. So what I found personally works best for white teeth is using Crest 3D whitening strips. Again, this is something you can go on Amazon. I think it's like maybe $50-$60. The pack's going to last you roughly a month, but if you do use them, do not use them too much because it will hurt your teeth. Even after the first time applying it, it might hurt your teeth quite a bit. So it is recommended that you go through a pack only twice per year. However, I do about 3 or 4 times per year and I've had no issues. Now what I would recommend to do to start if you buy them is to use them every second night, only for about 30 minutes, even if you experience no pain. And a little side note is that make sure you don't get the strips on your gums at all because that will hurt a lot and it's unnecessary. And you won't see crazy results after your first time going through a pack, but if you give it some time and then go through another pack in a few months, I promise if you're consistent enough with it that you will see significant improvements in your teeth. So when you're in shape with a chiseled face, you have youthful, tan looking skin, it's really going to make your face pop and be significantly more attractive. So we've covered losing face fat, developing your jaw, improving your skin, having nice white teeth. So what's next? So tip number 5 is going to be enhancing your eye area, which is an extremely underrated thing when it comes to improving your facial attractiveness. Now let's first start with clearing up your eye bags and getting them to tighten up. I'm someone who used to struggle with eye bags so bad for so many years and I was so insecure about it, especially when I was working as a cashier, because back when I was working as a cashier, seeing hundreds and hundreds of people every single day with big eye bags, all the time people would ask me if I got into a fight or if I didn't sleep enough or what happened to my eye, and it drove me absolutely insane. I've tried so many weird tips and tricks to reducing eye bags, such as putting tea bags on them, icing them, using a gua sha, hell, even using hemorrhoid cream on them. But after enough research and trial and error for years and years, I finally found something that reduces my eye bags to a significant amount. Now, obviously, again, the first line of defense is to make sure you're getting enough sleep and make sure you're hydrated. Again, pretty obvious, so I'm not going to go into too much details here because I feel like I've said those things 20 times in this video already. Now, if you are getting enough sleep and you are hydrated and you still have bad eye bags like how I did, what I recommend you do and what's worked best for me is getting a caffeine eye serum as well as volufolum. So remember when I said not to apply the moisturizer to your under eye? This is why. So in the morning after you shower, I use my Deferrin, as I mentioned earlier. I moisturize my face, avoiding my eye bag. Then what I do in the morning is apply the caffeine eye serum under my eyes. I use a very small amount because a little goes a long way, and rub it into my eyes until it's completely dry. And once it is completely dry, you'll literally feel your eye bags starting to tighten up, and it's a weird feeling at first, but it works really well. And the reason you want to avoid putting the moisturizer under your eye is because when you apply the serum, it's just not going to soak up as properly. Now with the Volufilam, again, a little goes a long way, so you don't need to use very much. But what I do for my night skincare routine, again, avoiding my under eyes with the moisturizer, is apply a very small amount of Volufilam under my eyes. And I rub it in to absorb it as much as possible. However, it does take a while to absorb, so your face is going to look wet after you use it. So again, I recommend doing it at night when you don't have to go see anyone. What the Volufilam is going to do is stimulate the storage of fat cells under your eyes, leading to a much more plump and volumized effect. So basically what it's doing is that it's thickening the skin under your eyes. So the Volufilam will thicken the skin under your eyes, whereas the caffeine eye serum will tighten that skin. Another trick that you can do with the Volufilam is apply it to your underbrow ridge. Because when you have thicker skin in your upper eyes, it's going to give you more of that hooded eye look. Now I'm not saying it's going to completely give you hunter eyes, but it can make your eyes look a little bit more fierce and more attractive if you do this for a long enough period of time. Now the next thing that you can do to really enhance your eye features is using something that's going to thicken your eyebrows. Like I grew up with pretty thin eyebrows for the most part, but once I started using this stuff called Rapid Brow for a couple months, I saw significant improvements in my eyebrow thickness. I use it every single night after I do my skincare routine. Having much more prominent and thicker eyebrows is really going to increase the contrast of your face and your eyes. Now to increase the contrast even more, you want to find something that's going to whiten the scleras of your eyes. So what I use to enhance the whiteness of my eyes are these eye drops from Lumify that are specifically made for making your eyes look whiter. Now it's honestly not something I use every single day because I heard if you use it every single day or you just use too much in general, that it can dry your eyes out a lot and it's just going to make it look worse. So I use it just a few times a week. And when you do apply this stuff, almost instantly you're going to see improvements in the whiteness of your eyes. No, I know I covered quite a bit in terms of actually enhancing your eye features and just making your eyes pop out more. So I'm going to put a list of everything that I went over on the screen here for you to take a screenshot. And look guys, I know it's a lot. I've gone over a lot in this video, but like I mentioned earlier, I was so insecure growing up about how I looked that I've gone down the rabbit hole and tried so many different things of improving my looks more times than I really want to admit. And last but not least, number 6, the bonus. Be ambitious and avoid complacency at all costs. Go for that life that you want. Find something that gives you purpose and a reason to wake up out of bed every morning. Now you might be asking, how does this actually translate to becoming more attractive? Well, it does because it has a direct correlation to how you walk, how you present yourself, and your facial expression. Like even just the way that you speak to people. If you are not someone who is ambitious and chasing your dreams, you'll speak with a lot less confidence, a lot less tonality, and really just come across as someone who just doesn't care. And being able to come across as someone with ambition and someone who actually has purpose and is driven is going to be significantly more attractive than pretty much all the other things that I went over in this video. Sure, being physically attractive will significantly help with every other aspect of your life, but how you actually hold and present yourself makes an even bigger world of a difference. You'll walk with your chest up, good posture, head forward when you're more ambitious. Like just imagine how much better you would feel that if you lived life on your own terms, that you were able to set a big goal for yourself and accomplish it. People are attractive to ambitious people because subconsciously they can tell that the way that you do one thing, how you present yourself, the way that you take care of yourself is how you do everything else. When you're physically attractive, you have a good physique, you've achieved something big or at least working towards something big, then I mean honestly, how can you lose at life? Because pretty much you have everything going for you. Think about it this way. How many people do you actually know who are good looking, have good physiques, and are extremely ambitious? I'm willing to bet that it's very few, if any. I included this as the bonus because when a man is ambitious, they hold themselves to higher standards, not just physically, but also mentally and every single aspect of their life. Because honestly, you'll know that if you're a man with purpose, taking care of yourself physically is honestly the bare minimum because it is so easy. Going to the gym a few times a week, making good food choices, getting your sleep, those things are extremely easy. But actually having a big goal to work towards and actually accomplishing it is going to set you even farther apart from everyone else. Anyway, really these are all the things I've learned over the last few years and more specifically in the last few months in terms of physical attractiveness. So hopefully you found it helpful and I will see you in the next one.